welcome to Comptroller's Corner. I'm your host, Pat Curry, joined as always by Buffalo Comptroller Mark Schroeder. Our top story today, the Comptroller has earned high marks from a CPA firm he hired to review the city's audit process. Now, Mark, this is called a peer review audit. It's when you have an outside CPA firm look at your audit process.
Right.
And I'm going to quote right from them. They said your department consists of, quote, experienced, competent, and qualified professionals. Now, that was your goal when you first got elected controller, is put the best people in the positions to make the most impact for the city residents.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Patrick. I think it's important to point out, though, that the charter calls for this. This is a mandatory audit that has to be done by the controller every 3 years. And I don't often make judgments on previous controllers, but I want to make it very, very clear to our listeners, previous controllers have never done this. We happen to honor the charter, and we do what the charter says. And when this was put in the charter some time ago, the citizens group thought it would be important for an outside audit of how we audit. It's real simple, and you read some of the headlines within the audit. At the same time, there are certain things that we take from the audit that we will work on, constructively over the next couple of years. And also within the audit, it's pretty clear that we could use some more help within audit. It's hard to do that because within a budget year and the budget years that's coming up pretty soon, we have to kind of deal with making sure that we stay steadfast and that we keep the budget tight. But there are some things that we've learned from this audit that are important to us and that we will take into consideration as we go forward.
Now, you mentioned the charter. It said that the department should be reviewed by a professional, nonpartisan, objective organization utilizing nationally recognized guidelines. Now, you did a competitive bidding process just to make sure that the city got the best firm to do this at the most competitive rate. You selected Amato and Fox after that competitive bidding process, and they conducted this peer review audit, which found that your department was not only operating effectively, but under the leadership of Kevin Kaufman, that audit reports were clear and concise, and that Kaufman in particular had the knowledge, drive, and energy level that are a positive complement to the department. I'm quoting right from that report.
Right. And so it goes back, I've been the controller for 3 years, and it goes back to really the first month we took over. We did an assessment. It wasn't mandatory. We did an assessment. We brought in the University of Buffalo, and I wanted to do an assessment of all 3 divisions. And then it is mandatory by the charter to do an audit of audit and control. And also 3 years ago, Patrick, which I've pointed out a number of times, when I first became the controller, there was only one certified public accountant as an employee in our department. We now have 8, including Kevin Kaufman, who I recruited. I brought in and we hired him from the private sector. So I am very confident and I am not surprised at all by the audit because of the people that Ann Forty-Sciarrino and I have brought in over the last 3 years. Professionals, certified public accountants, and people who really know what to do and they understand best practices.
Now, Mark, you mentioned certified public accountants that you brought in.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about Claire Waldron. She's your special assistant to the controller. She's a CPA, and she's been with you for a couple of years now. And what do you have her working on, and what does she bring to the controller's office?
So, Patrick, it's interesting because, when you're a new controller, you have all these great ideas and you want to do all these different things, right? And so I'm talking to the technician, Ann Forty-Sciarrino, who's had a lifelong career in Buffalo City Hall and in the Comptroller's office in particular. And as I'm telling her about all these things we're going to do, she says, Comptroller, who's going to do all of this work? And so that's when Ann and I decided that the special assistant to the controller has never been a certified public accountant before, ever, in our history. So we brought in Claire Waldron. Claire Waldron is a certified public accountant and with incredible hands-on experience as a controller of a major retirement community here in Erie County. And so we brought her in nearly 2 years ago, and there have been several projects that she's worked on, one of which is what is called the popular annual financial review, which we'll talk about probably in a month or so. But there are a number of things that she has done. And there's a common language between CPAs. And you have Ann Forty-Sherino, the first deputy, CPA. I have the city auditor, CPA, city accountant, CPA, debt management officer, CPA. They all talk the same language. They understand each other. When they ask Claire a question or to get involved in a project, she knows what they're talking about automatically. That's the value of Claire Waldron, and we're very grateful that we found her and that she's been working in the Comptroller's office.
Now, we actually sat down with Claire Waldron for another segment in our series of Meeting Your Management Team. So stay tuned for this special report on Claire Waldron from the Comptroller's Corner. Tell us a little bit about what you do for the Department of Audit and Control.
Certainly. I do a lot of special projects, and over the time that I've spent here, we've been involved in some different project focuses. One of the largest ones was really taking a document control system, a document management system, and putting it in place for the Department of Audit and Control. My past experience, as well as with the city, is that a lot of processes are known by people. A lot of processes are not documented, and then people move on and people move into different positions, and there's not a really good understanding of what needs to be done in each position that needs to be filled. So we went through and did a really in-depth job of documenting all of the processes, and then also getting them into an electronic form where people could easily access them. So it's been really helpful.
So, for instance, if someone had worked in the payroll department for 30 years and they know how they did things and they had it all up in their mind, but someday they're going to retire, and we've had a lot of retirements here in this department and people moving on to other jobs, you were trying to find a way to capture that knowledge that's up here in their brain and put it on paper so that the next person that's doing their job knows what to do.
Exactly. And you know, I was in charge of it, but I have to say the staff in our department was wonderful, and they really went through and documented everything that they work on, and were really organized and getting all of the information available. So as people have changed positions and moved from one to the next, which is really what does happen with the city, with promotions, there's been a good groundwork set so that somebody could get started and get running pretty quickly.
And you work closely with the University of Buffalo on this project, and they had some expertise, and you were the point person for them as far as implementing those procedures into this department.
Exactly right. They really helped to keep us focused on what we needed to do. We met regularly with them, and they reviewed the information that we were supplying and made recommendations. And so it was very helpful to have an organization help us and keep what we were doing focused and organized. So that was great.
So you're also, mentioned that you're a CPA, and you do a great deal of analysis on the city's budget. Not only when it comes out every May, you do a very in-depth analysis, but also at each quarter, there's what's called a gap report prepared by the administration. You review that gap report and the projections that were made in the budget and the actual revenues and expenses that are coming in and out, and you're able to give a report every 3 months based on what you feel from your analysis is the shape of the city's budget and how we're going to meet our projections.
Exactly. We've really spent a lot of time gaining good understandings of the controls in place throughout the city and kind of the processes that exist, and as well as doing an annual really hard look at the budget, so that quarterly, when we take a good look at the actual expenditures and actual revenues of the city, we have a really educated way of looking at what the numbers should look like based on where we are and where we've been, and we're able to alert the city if we feel that there are some areas that maybe we're not going to meet budget on from a revenue, or we're going to go over budget from an expenditure perspective.
And you also, in the reports that the Comptroller issues. You make sure that the numbers tie out, as you say, and that everything in there is accurate, and you double and triple check a lot of these figures to make sure we're putting out the most accurate information, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we spend a lot of time reviewing the information that comes out of this department. We have a lot of discussions within our department. You and I will sometimes discuss what exactly, is going on with the revenues and the expenditures, and the Deputy Comptroller has a lot of involvement, the City Accountant. So we spend a lot of time making sure that we've got, crossed our T's and dotted our I's before we release any information. And we know that we're in a really good position to be able to make recommendations and know that they're accurate.
And as far as, there's been a great deal of advancements in technology, and you have a computer, but I think your most trusted tool is that old-fashioned calculator with the printed paper on there, and I hear it working away as you're crunching these numbers.
Yes.
And you really think that that's really the best way to, the old-fashioned way. They can't really improve on something that's done so well, right?
I don't know many accountants that don't have a 10 key still on their desk, and people like to laugh at us. But sometimes you just really have to get down to the nuts and bolts of something and make sure that it makes sense and it's reasonable. And numbers don't lie. So we spend a lot of time just ticking and tying our numbers and making sure that mathematically they make sense.
Right. So you also have a great deal of experience reviewing proposals. Now, the Comptroller's Office, we, by law and by charter, have to engage certain consultants, bond counsels, financial advisors, lawyers, actuarial services, arbitrage services. There's a great deal of people that we need to rely on for outside help. And the way we do that is an open competitive bidding process where the city says, this is what we're looking for, and the proposals come in from outside organizations. Now, you play a key part not only in putting together that request for a proposal, the RFP as it's called, which asks for these bids, but you also review all the bids when they come in, and you've come up with a scoring system to identify experience, price, and all other factors that would make the decision for the controller, and you can advise the controller on what's the best consultant to choose in this process.
Right. We spend a lot of time really making sure that, first of all, the criteria are met. We have certain mandatory items, such as, people have to be licensed to provide certain services. They have to be able to meet the requirements of the city's contracts. But then there are other expertise items, and we really need to be fair in the way that we evaluate, and price sometimes as well. But there's a lot of items that go in to make sure the city's getting the best service at the best price. And sometimes you really have to be careful not to only look at price, but expertise being really important and balancing the two, so that one doesn't overshadow the other. And again, you're spending the city's dollars and the citizens' dollars the right way.
You also oversee the Comptroller's Internship program. Tell us a little about that program and the interns that we've had and the guidance that you've been able to give them.
Sure. We started just about a year and a half ago with Canisius College, and we are currently have in place our third intern. We've had great experience. The other two that have been with us, I think, have really learned how to work in an office setting, how to look at financial information, how to, kind of about city government and what's going on here and how appealing it is. And our third has just started, and it's really my priority and our priority to make sure that our interns are gaining useful knowledge that they can either use, in college or at their first job. We really want them to feel like it was almost a class, and when they leave, they're better for it, and certainly we're better for it. We've enjoyed working with Canisius and with our interns.
Well, one intern in particular, Cody, was a rock star. Now, he was able to have some real experience here that helped us do our job better, and it gave him an idea of how the job setting works, and now he moved on to a successful career at a local firm called Liaison.
Liaison, exactly. He was, and each intern is fun. He was certainly interesting. He was really great on the computer, and some of the younger generation, and it's scary for me to say that, but yes, they just come out with this knowledge of computers and Excel and databases, and so really what's interesting is that not only are we hoping that we're teaching them something, but they bring some information into our environment too that's really interesting. And he actually did a great analysis of our prior year's financial performance and generated a report and did graphing and just really had a wonderful initiative, and it was really fun to work with him.
These are the sort of things that you can't learn in the classroom that you have to do in a workplace setting. So this is a way for him to get that real world experience, and it turned out to pay off in the long run as he embarks on his new career.
Absolutely, absolutely. We wish him well.
So speaking of students, you also work on examining not only the city's finances, but the finances of the Buffalo Public School System, and also the internal controls set up to try to prevent any sort of fraud or mismanagement there. Tell us a little about your efforts with the Buffalo Public Schools.
Sure. I mean, I think that we've really, in the last couple of years, increased some of the focus on the Buffalo Public Schools financial performance and the controls that exist there. We've taken a really hard look at some of the areas relative to conflicts of interest, as well as contracts in place for exempt employees, as well as just looking at the financial information, instructional, educational, administrative, and trying to figure out, comparatively speaking to other districts, kind of how we're doing and where we may be heavy or light. So it's an ongoing analysis. We continue to have conversations about, where we might like to spend more time, but we've certainly increased our focus in the last couple of years.
And the Buffalo Public Schools is an issue that's close to your heart. You're a
Absolutely.
alumni of
Proud.
City Honors School. You attended there. Tell us a little about that experience when you were at City Honors.
It was a wonderful experience. It honestly helped to shape me, shape who I am. I am clearly a city person, a city girl, and my best friends, the people I spend a lot of my time socially with now still come from my days at City Honors. We have a wonderful network of friends, and they have all gone on to have wonderful careers, very impressive resumes, as well as just are great, great people, salt of the earth. So I'm very fond of City Honors graduates, Patrick.
Me too.
I know.
I
one
also
as well.
attended there. Now, after City Honors, you moved on to UB, University of Buffalo. As we mentioned before, you worked with them in the document management program. Tell us a little about your college career, and then you moved on to the private sector. Tell us a little bit about that too.
So after college, which was a wonderful education, I mean, can't do much better. I know I'm a little partial. I moved on to Deloitte & Touche, which is currently a Big Four accounting firm.
One of the Big Four accounting firms across the nation.
And it's international as well. And worked there for about 4 years, working on different audits in different industries, from banking, healthcare, government contracting, and a lot of pension audits too in our summers. So that was a really great groundwork for me, just really getting my feet into different industries and the accounting for them and the controls and auditing of those places. Then I moved on from there to a company called the Weinberg Campus, which is out in Gettsville, New York, and actually was with them for 15 years. And most of my career there was spent as the controller. And that's a company where we had many different levels of care for a senior population, as well as provided residency for them. And I was involved in, obviously, all the financial responsibilities of the company, but it was great because I also interacted with all of the departments, whether it was maintenance, whether it was actually service provision. So I really was able to understand all of the facets of the operations, which helps when you're doing the accounting for a company, is to really soup to nuts understand what's going on.
So how has your experience in your private sector role translated into your new role here in the city of Buffalo in the government?
Private sector, you definitely spend a lot of time looking at your bottom line and reviewing your budget and making sure that your performance is sticking close to budget, and if it's not, why? As well as, again, where I was, I knew a lot of the operations, so having an appreciation for not just the financial aspect of something, but what's the operations behind it, because that's important. Sometimes there are unknown circumstances. A storm a couple weeks ago, of course we're going to incur extra expenses related to it. So it's really understanding both sides. And I think my private sector helped to really round me out that way, and not just be a numbers person, but really being able to understand that there's more to it than just what's going on the sheet of paper with your numbers.
Now, when people think accountants, they often think of tax accountants working 80 hours a week during tax season.
Right, absolutely.
But that not necessarily is the experience of every accountant. For instance, you're here in the city of Buffalo. It's more of a regimented structure, and that helps you because you have 2 young sons at home, and you're a working mom. Tell us a little bit about that balance in being a working mom and having responsibilities at home and also in the workplace.
Absolutely. You know, it's easier to have a predictable schedule when you're managing multiple schedules, your own, your children, you know, other obligations of family, you know, parents that may have needs as well, you know, my parents. So I've been in industries, you know, where I worked a ton of hours, and sometimes that's just part of development of a career, depending on what you're in. But it definitely helps to have a much more predictable schedule when you have all these other obligations. And that's what, you know, obviously with many other aspects, but the city of Buffalo certainly has offered me, is a much more predictable existence. And so that I can meet all of the needs. And I think, you know, recognizing that you want to do as much as you do as well as you can. So it helps me not to bite off more than I can chew. And I make sure that within my job, which is predictable, I'm meeting all the requirements. And certainly I love to take on more challenges. But I also know at home there's so much I can do and so much we shouldn't get involved in because I have other obligations. So it really helps me to manage both areas.
What advice would you have for young accountants, particularly young women, who do want to pursue a career in accounting, but also want to have a family and be there for their children? Accounting
is a great profession for anyone, quite honestly. Certainly, you know, for a working mother as well. Every company needs an accountant. Everybody needs someone to manage the books. And for a working woman, you know, there are so many different opportunities, whether it was, you know, in city government, city of Buffalo, there's a lot of working mothers here, or out elsewhere. You certainly are able to, you know, get your job done, and whether you're working full-time or part-time, you have a lot of options out there if you're an accountant. I would say, you know, just trying to make sure that you are as inquisitive as you can and you make yourself valuable. Or make yourself invaluable to your employer. You know, always work to get to the answer before somebody, you know, comes up with it. It's always good to come to your employer with the answers, with the proposal, and just making yourself that much more valuable. I find that the more valuable I became, the more flexibility, if I needed it, it was easy to, you know, ask for it if and when it was necessary.
Now, Claire, you're a big Buffalo booster. We mentioned you went to Buffalo Public School City Honors, you went to University of Buffalo, you live in the city of Buffalo, and now you work for the city of Buffalo. Tell us a little bit about your love for this city and what it means to you.
You know, obviously, I've remained in the city, I've loved it, and was here 20 years ago when I was graduating from college, well, 25 years ago, and there wasn't a lot of energy. I loved it. I believed things would start to change, and now being down here and being part of what feels like just a constant energy and constant development that you can see everywhere. I have to say that 20 years ago I would get the question all the time, why do you live in the city? You know, why aren't you moving out to the suburbs, or why aren't you moving somewhere else? And in thinking about it, I don't know when I stopped being asked that question, but I've stopped being asked that question, and it's refreshing.
And now more people are moving into the city, especially young people, which we've seen that their numbers have been going up recently. And there's a lot of vibrancy, and you can see that every day when you drive to work. You see the cranes and the construction.
It's exciting. It's exciting, and it's fun to be part of it. And I'm glad that you know, the population of all of us and everybody who's here, you know, stuck it out, because it's fun to be part of it.
Well, thanks for your service to the city of Buffalo.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks for joining us here on Comptroller's Corner.
Great talking to you.
Yes, Claire Waldron sure does bring a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the Comptroller's office. Now, Mark, you're quite proud of the work she's done while she's worked under your supervision.
She's been outstanding, and not only does she have a certain skill set that we need, but she's very affable, she's very friendly, and everybody likes her. but most importantly, they know she's a professional and you can count on her. And these are the types of people that I have brought in over the last 3 years, and that's my commitment to the citizens of Buffalo. I will continue to bring in Claire Waldrons and the other deputies that I've brought in because it's important for Buffalo.
And you mentioned her communication skills, and that's vital because it's one thing to have a CPA looking at these things, but if it's not communicated to the staff and to the public properly, it's almost wasted effort. Now Claire's communication skills really come in handy in this effort, and she's been able to lead the UBTCIE initiative that you mentioned earlier, where the whole office is managing documents in a more comprehensive way.
Yeah, there's everybody also within City Hall, just beyond the 12th floor where the controller is. They know who she is, and they have a respect for her, and that's what we wanted.
Now, Mark, we only have a few minutes left. I did want to mention the comprehensive annual financial report that was just released. It's one of the things that you have CPAs working on in your office, and it shows that the city, while we have a strong cash position, the reserves are dwindling, and we need to find some long-term answers to our budget deficits.
This isn't anything, quite frankly, that we didn't know. So we do a gap report each and every quarter, so we have a sense of where we are. The CAFR is the close. It's the close of the fiscal year. We're required to do it. President Eisenhower required all municipalities to do it, and that's what we do. The CAFR that we've published just recently, it's the 182nd time we've closed the books on the city of Buffalo going back to 1832. We have a CAFR library of these comprehensive reports, and these things are very, very important. And each year, as you know, because you've noted it, Patrick, that we are given awards from the GFOA. And the reason why we're given awards is because we do the work in a comprehensive way and in a timely fashion. And that's the reason why, for I think 9 years in a row, we've been cited for good work.
Now, Mark, we run out of time, but we do have a minute left. I understand you have a holiday message and New Year message you'd like to share with the folks at home.
Yeah, Patrick, I especially want to share a holiday message with all of Buffalo and Buffalonians. There are some people who don't celebrate during this holiday season, and I wish them well and their families well. And there are others who do. Hanukkah started on December 16th and goes to the 24th. And then a very big community here is going to be celebrating the birth of Jesus on December 25th, Christmas Day. And then thereafter, December 26th, for 7 days, is Kwanzaa. And so I wish everybody in the city of Buffalo goodwill and to be healthy and to have a beautiful, great new year.
Well, Mark, thanks for joining us on Comptroller's Corner. And thank you at home for joining us. Make sure to check out the Comptroller's website at city-buffalo.com/comptroller, our YouTube channel, our Twitter handle, and our Facebook page. On behalf of Mark Schroeder, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, and we'll see you in 2015.